stop, hesitate, and listen. ISE is back with a brand new version. Hey everybody, this is the Cisco Security United States Public Sector team with a new video for you guys on Cisco ISE 3.0 and 3.1. Why are we doing this video? Mainly because ISE 3.1 recently was added to the APL, actually last week on 2/22/22. That's 100% fun to say. So I want to bring you guys a video with details on that, the new features that came out in 3.0, 3.1, since many of you are still on 2.6 or 2.7. And then a quick overview of the Comply to Connect STIG that came out from DISA in the spring of last year. Just want to make sure you guys are aware that it exists, what is on it, in case you have to go through and do Comply to Connect. So let's get started on what's in the box of ISE 3.0 and 3.1. Obviously it's 3.0, so something major had to happen for us to go to a new version. Unfortunately, that new thing was licensing. We used to have a coexistence of both classic license, which is pack-based license, and smart license, which is you connect to the internet, there's a handshake there, and real-time reporting of what you're using on your license to Cisco.com. Obviously, that is not a great way. That smart license option is not a great way for air-gapped customers to work because they can't connect to the internet. And unfortunately, we had classic licenses. Unfortunately, they took that away in 3.0. So you'll see up there in 3.0, which came out in the fall of 2020, no PLR. PLR, if you're unaware, is permanent license reservation. If you're air-gapped customer, Cisco customer, you probably know what that means, but basically that is the new license that air-gapped customers use to enable their licenses on all products that are smart enabled. So you'll notice that it says not until patch 2. So if you upgrade from 2.x to 3.0, just know that there will be no PLR support until you get past patch 2. So patch 2 and later. If you go to 3.0 or 3.1, you're going to go to the latest patch anyway. That's just best practice. So you shouldn't run into this issue. Just a heads up if you do. I mentioned 1 and 2. I'll go right to 3, which is we're now switching to a DNA Center license scheme. So if you know DNA Center, it's basically 3 tiers, just like ISE was. So ISE has Base plus Apex, or did. DNA Center had Essentials, Advantage, Premier. So 3 tiers. They basically line up perfectly transition-wise. So Base becomes Essentials, Plus becomes Advantage, Apex becomes Premier. So all the features, for the most part, I believe, and you can check the release notes and the document I'm about to mention here, but they all should line up perfectly. There is a document. If you Google Cisco ISE 3.0 License Migration Guide, you will find it, probably the first hit, I hope so. And you will find all the details about this license migration, how to go about getting your new Cisco 3.0 licenses and so forth. So definitely recommend you reach out or Google and do that. And I also recommend that you reach out to your Cisco account team so that they can give you custom information on your licenses per se, to make sure your expiration dates and everything are working out in just in case you need to renew or anything like that. 2 caveats from this are the base license, when it gets transferred to an ISE Essentials license, goes from perm to term. It is now a term license. I know it's awful, but that's just the way it is now. That's the software model. Everything goes term eventually. So just know that when you go from a base license to an essential license, it is now a term license. Again, any questions, refer to the doc or your account team, and we will get you the answers that you need. And the number two caveat is we're no longer a la carte. We are now inclusive. So if you bought the top tier Premier license, that would cover down on the Advantage and the Essentials. Whereas before, if you bought Apex, that would not cover down on Base or Plus. You would have to buy individual Base or Plus licenses. So that is actually definitely a pro. That is the model that most of the rest of the company uses in their products, so I'm glad we're finally on that model. I've included, I think, 6 more features here. I'll briefly go over a few of them. Agentless posture. That was a big one that a competitor has been using for a while. As a security guy, I'm not a big fan of, giving ISE admin rights to every one of your boxes. I rather install a lightweight client. And honestly, if you do Comply to Connect, you're probably going to have to do that client anyway for remediation or some other use case. So it's there, it's great. It's lighter weight than an agent, but the agent is very lightweight. So I'm still, for my patch, I'm going to recommend my customers still go agent. But it's nice to have. Endpoint Scripts Wizard. This is where you can actually, on a connected endpoint, run a script. This is not necessarily during the posture period where you're coming in and doing compliance. You can run this script anytime. So that's very nice, and it'll leeway into a feature on 3.1. Health check is huge. You get all these alert messages on ISE when you can't reach NTP, your domain controller. You get a ton of error messages typically on an ISE box. This is the way it is. They alert you on everything. But is it actually healthy enough to do an upgrade or a patch? Or if you just want to know if your ISE box is healthy. So you can actually run this health check definitely before upgrades to make sure your box is healthy enough to go through the upgrade, and hopefully you won't have any issues. API gateway, again, our API was kind of all over the place. There was an API on the PANs, the MNTs, ERS. We've now all consolidated them in an API gateway, which is a much better system. So if you're running APIs, you may have to redo your APIs when you hit 3.0. Just a heads up. And then lastly, the end of the line for SNS 3515. We know this will be the last supported version, 3.0. So if you're going from 2.x to 3.x and you have an SNS 3515, 3.0 is the farthest you can go. We still do support the 3595 on 3.1. So if you're running that box, you're fine. But if you're running that low end 3500, 3.0 is the last supported release. Moving into 3.1, which came out in the summer of 2021, that is your APL version. You see that we got APL status 22222. Again, very fun to say. One more license change, of course. We went from a small, medium, large VM SKU license scheme. Now we're doing one common license. We did this for a few different reasons, but the main takeaway is that you can now, if you have a small and you want to move it to a medium or a large, all you have to do is turn off the box, move up the specs, turn it back on, and now it's a medium or large. We're no longer confined to those resources of a small, medium, large. So that actually is a pretty good feature, especially for if you need extra capacity or scalability. Another important note here is PX Grid 2.0 only now on ISE boxes. Where does this come into play is integration. So like for instance, if you have Firepower Management Center integrated with ISE or StealthWatch, you just have to make sure those products are running 2.0. For instance, like Firepower Management Center upgraded the PX 2.0 on version 6.6. So if you want that integration to work after you upgrade to 3.1, you need to make sure those products are running PX Grid 2.0. I do have a nice spreadsheet on Cisco products. If you guys want to reach out to your account teams, and they can reach out to me, I can gladly provide you that. SLR is kind of a brother to PLR, where instead of PLR just enabling the box to its full capability forever, SLR does come with expiration dates and is per feature. So for the most part in federal air gap scenarios, we do PLR, but if you want to do SLR, it is available as well. Linux Posture is finally available. You can check the release notes for the flavors that are available and what we can do condition-wise. I recommend doing that. If you have a feature request that you want to do for a different flavor, please let us know. But it is finally there. Full and split upgrade options. ISE upgrades, like any other upgrade, can be kind of tenuous and stressful, and it actually can take a while depending on how you do it. The full upgrade option lets you upgrade in parallel. So if you had two admin nodes and you want to upgrade them at the same time, you can. Of course, there will be an outage because you're upgrading them both at the same time, but it will take shorter. You're talking, hopefully under an hour. Whereas a split upgrade, where you can do it serial-wise, you upgrade one node and another node and another node, make sure it's successful, and you have full service the entire time. That's a split upgrade that's still there. It just takes a little bit longer, but you're in service the entire time, which is great. And any failure can be remediated. Preferred domain controllers. I've asked for this option since I was a customer way back in the day. And basically, when you have a failover, when your main primary domain controller fails, and you have multiple domain controllers in your environment, it seems to arbitrarily just pick a domain controller. I'm sure there's reason behind it, but it's never the one you want, like the secondary, like in your office. So you can actually do preferred domain controllers where that doesn't happen. You always map to a certain domain controller, which is a great feature finally. Posture script remediation. That was from 3.0. I mentioned you can do endpoint script wizard. This is kind of the same way. Now it's a remediation for when you do posture. So you come in, you're not compliant, you can actually run a script to do whatever you need to get in compliance. Zero touch provisioning. We have this mindset now in 3.x of doing complete management, lifecycle management of ISE through API if you really want to. That's installing, that's patching, and the whole life cycle of ISE. So this is a great start, zero touch provisioning. You can basically, with a VM or an appliance, do all the initial configuration, install patches, set up repositories. All that can be done with zero touch provisioning. So again, ISE install can take an hour plus depending on resources. It's multiple screens. I hate to sit there and just waste my time, but that's what happens. Now this is going to be scripted. So if you have a large deployment or a very geo-dispersed environment where you don't have admins at every site, you can actually run this to get your servers up and running. And last but not least is no more ACS migration tool support. ACS has been end of sale and really end of life. You can still get hardware, I think, for the next few months support, but the software support's been gone for 2 years. You really shouldn't be on it. I have a few customers that are on it, but if you want to migrate from ACS to ISE, you basically have to go to 3.0 first if you want to get the 3.1. So it'd be ACS to 3.0 to 3.1. That would be your path. So there's still a path to get there, just not a direct path. All right, and the last slide I want to talk to you guys about is the Cisco ISE Comply Connect STIG. This STIG came out April of last year. It was recently updated as of last month, January of 2022. You can see the link there, but if you know STIGs, you know how to get to them. Just search Cisco ISE and you'll find it no problem. It includes a STIG for both NDM, that's Network Device Management, aka TACX, and NAC, aka Comply Connect. There is a slight 802.1x vibe in a couple of the STIGs, but for the most part, this is a Comply Connect STIG. You can go to the layer 2 switch STIGs for the 802.1x stuff. Within that NAC, the NDM STIG is very straightforward, but within that NAC STIG, you're going to see 32 STIGs, 8 of them being Cat 1s, 23 being Cat 2s, and there's 1 Cat 3. The NAC STIG calls out what they call a NAC SSP, that's System Security Plan. That is not a Cisco term, that is a NIST term, and you can see the formal definition here. Basically, the SSP is defined by you, the customer, to determine what you think should be under Comply Connect, what policies they should have. So it's really up to this, even though they give you a baseline of what they think you should inspect, what policies you should have. Should you do AV, inspect for AV, make sure it's turned on, it's up to date, patches, so on and so forth. Those are in there. But at the end of the day, it's up to your SSP. It's up to you, the customer, to define what you think should be under that C2C policy and what policies they should get. So even though it is a STIG here, it's very customizable to your environment, because we know like Comply Connect is great, but once you start messing with like the command group and they can't do mission critical stuff because they're out of compliance, heads are going to roll. So it does give you that leeway to make your own SSP and define Comply Connect for your environment. And that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for joining this video.